Claire Wayne felt a chill run down her spine as she pulled out an envelope without a postmark. The paper was thick, and the handwriting, almost artistic, rare in its refined calligraphic curves. Her heart pounded wildly, because the lines inside promised a change to everything she thought she knew about her life. Everything you believed in is a lie. If you want to know the truth about your lineage, meet Morgan at the old house on Longwood. At midnight. Evening New York was unusually quiet, like the calm before a storm. The skyscrapers loomed with oppressive mass, and the streets glowed with a kaleidoscope of reflections from neon signs. Claire walked, her eyes fixed on the envelope, her thoughts racing between fear and excitement. The adrenaline was familiar, the same feeling she'd had as a child sneaking into forbidden places, now stirring in her blood again. She remembered her childhood, the dark corridors of the house where she could hear nothing but her own breathing. Her father's eyes that never smiled, the constant sense that someone was watching. All those memories suddenly took on new meaning, like puzzle pieces she was finally starting to fit together. The old house on Longwood stood abandoned, its dark windows staring like empty eyes. The door creaked as Claire stepped across the threshold, and the smell of dust and aged wood filled her lungs. In the darkness she noticed the silhouette of a tall man, gray at the temples. His gaze was calm yet piercing. "I've been waiting for you, Claire," he said softly. "It's time to reveal the truth." He showed her a box filled with photographs, letters, and old journals. Claire felt her heart tighten with tension. There were her parents who had never allowed her to look into her past, and there were terrible secrets, fraud, deceit, dangerous deals. She sat on an old wooden chair, holding one of the letters in her hands, her thoughts flowing like a river breaking through a dam. Her life had been part of someone else's game, and now the choice she made would define everything. The next day, Claire began her own investigation. The streets of New York became a labyrinth, where an enemy could lurk around every corner. She noticed a car moving slowly behind her, and her heart raced. Using sharp instincts and experience, she began tracking her pursuers, recording every move they made. On her path appeared Edward, a former detective who had once worked with her father. At first she didn't trust him, but when he saved her from an attack by strangers, she understood. She needed help. Together they uncovered old schemes in which her parents had been involved, gradually untangling a web of lies and secrets. One evening, Claire received a new letter. "If you keep digging, you will die." Her intuition whispered that betrayal was drawing near, perhaps from someone she trusted. Her heart clenched with both fear and anger. She knew life was forcing her to choose between safety and the truth. New York at night was another creature entirely. The dark alleys, the glow of street lamps casting long shadows over the wet pavement, the distant hum of traffic fading and returning again, all created an atmosphere of constant tension. Claire moved carefully, listening to every sound, watching every flicker in the shadows. Edward seemed reliable, but over time, a seed of doubt grew in her mind. She realized that even those she considered friends might be part of a greater conspiracy. Survival had become almost ritualistic. She was learning to use darkness, obstacles, and instincts to stay one step ahead. The pursuit was growing more intense. Claire felt the pressure tighten in her chest, her thoughts spinning wildly. Every shadow seemed an enemy, every sound a warning of danger. She hid inside empty buildings, vaulted over fences, relying on her knowledge of the city, a place that had felt like home since childhood, when she had wandered its dark streets in search of forbidden mysteries. Edward walked beside her, yet Claire noticed how his gaze lingered at times, on passers-by, on cars moving too slowly. Her suspicions grew, but deep down a fragment of trust remained. He had saved her once, and that couldn't be ignored. One evening, they found themselves inside an abandoned warehouse on the city's outskirts. Shafts of dust floated in the beams of light filtering through broken windows. Claire discovered her father's old journal, its pages filled with cryptic notes and numbers that resisted immediate decoding. Excitement and dread washed over her at once. These writings could hold the key to all her family's secrets. Meanwhile, New York streets seemed alive at night. The lamps cast long shadows across wet cobblestones, and the distant rumble of the subway created a rhythm that urged her forward. Claire felt the city in her very body. Every street, every alley was part of her inner labyrinth. She began to decipher the journal, her heart tightening with every revelation. Her parents had been entangled in dealings she had never suspected. Missing people, old debts, names returning like nightmares from the past, all formed a terrifying picture. Then, suddenly, she heard a rustle behind her. Shadows moved swiftly, and her heart froze. Instinctively, Claire slipped behind a shelf just as two men entered the warehouse. They were looking for her. She inhaled deeply, recalling the skills honed through years of observation and practice. Every sound, every shift of movement was a signal. She had to act fast. Using the darkness and chaos of the storage racks, Claire led the men astray, circled around them, and slipped out through the back door. Adrenaline surged through her veins, her knees trembled, but her mind was sharp, precise, like it had been when she trained herself in the old streets long ago. She met Morgan in a small cafe hidden in a narrow alley. His face was serious, but his eyes were kind. "You're making the right moves," he said softly. "But you must understand, not all allies are what they seem." Claire nodded, feeling determination boil inside her. She knew the truth could not be uncovered without risk, without fear thrumming in her blood. The city was no longer just a backdrop. It was a living organism, breathing with her. The following days turned into a series of surveillances, deceptions, and small victories. Claire collected fragments of the past, piecing them together into a bigger picture. She noticed details others might dismiss. Familiar faces, cars that reappeared, phone calls that dissolved into silence. All of it built a vast puzzle, each step bringing her closer to the truth, yet also nearer to danger. Her inner monologue became an inseparable part of the investigation. Who can I trust? Should I reveal this truth if the price is my life? Can I remain true to myself when everything I knew turns out to be a lie? The thoughts pulsed in her mind like the beating of a metronome. One night, as rain poured down, Claire felt the city closing in on her like a predator. Neon lights reflected in puddles, creating a world that seemed both real and illusory. The sound of footsteps behind her grew louder, and she realized she was being followed again. Her heart pounded in her chest. She turned into a narrow alley, feeling the cold drops soak her jacket. The pursuers weren't giving up. At the last moment, Claire managed to slip into the entrance of an abandoned building, hiding in the shadows. She held her breath, hearing voices outside. She went this way. Don't let her slip through. Claire's instincts screamed that she couldn't stay put. She climbed to the second floor, where broken windows overlooked the street. For a moment, her gaze caught the city lights. New York seemed endless, but at that instant it looked like a trap. She jumped, landing in a pile of old boxes, pain shooting up her leg but not stopping her. The chase continued. She wove between cars through crowded streets, disappearing into the chaos of the metropolis. Adrenaline kept her moving forward, even as exhaustion gnawed at her body. The next day, she confronted Edward. His silence seemed too heavy, his answers too vague. "You're hiding something," she said coldly, meeting his eyes. Edward looked away. "Claire, there are things you don't understand. Your parents weren't who you thought they were. But if you keep pushing, you'll end up just like them." Her fists clenched. Betrayal tasted bitter on her tongue. But she also felt pity. Edward wasn't entirely an enemy. He was trapped just as she was. Soon after, Claire discovered a hidden room in her parents' house, a place she had never been allowed as a child. Dusty shelves lined with books, photographs yellowed with time, and a metal box locked tight. With trembling hands she opened it. Inside lay documents confirming everything Morgan had told her. Her family's empire was built on lies, on the suffering of others. Tears burned her eyes. All those years she had searched for affection, for warmth in her parents' cold glances, and now the truth stood before her. Her past was like a mirror shattering into thousands of shards. Morgan found her there, sitting on the floor amid the ruins of memory. "You must decide," he said quietly. "Either destroy everything and start anew, or continue their game." Claire raised her gaze. Determination flared in her eyes. "I'll uncover the truth, whatever the cost." The battle grew harsher. Enemies struck more often. Claire endured attacks, betrayals, the sting of fear. But every time she rose stronger, sharper, more unyielding. The city no longer seemed like home. It became a battlefield where every step could be her last. Claire learned to sleep only in short bursts, always ready to run. Her nerves were strung like wires. Any knock, any whisper could jolt her awake. One evening she met Morgan again, this time on a rooftop overlooking Manhattan. The wind whipped her hair, and the city sprawled beneath them, a pulsing organism of light and darkness. "They won't stop," Morgan said, his voice steady. "You've gone too far. You've uncovered too much." "I can't turn back," Claire replied, her gaze fixed on the skyline. If I stop now, everything I've lived through will mean nothing. Morgan studied her, then gave a short nod. Then you'll need allies. Real ones. But trust carefully. Every choice will cost you. Later that night, Claire's path crossed with a mysterious woman named Isabella. Tall, elegant, with eyes that seemed to see straight through lies. She appeared unexpectedly during one of Claire's escapes. Isabella led her through a hidden passage under the city, where old tunnels stretched into darkness. These paths are older than New York itself, Isabella whispered. Your parents knew about them. They used them to hide things that were never meant to be found. The tunnels reeked of damp stone and rusting metal. Their footsteps echoed like warnings in the dark. At the end, they discovered another cache. Ledgers, lists of names, codes. Claire's hands trembled as she flipped through the pages. Some of the names she recognized. People who had mysteriously disappeared. Businessmen ruined overnight. Families broken without explanation. Isabella's voice was almost a hiss. This is power. Dangerous power. And now you have it. But Claire understood too well. The more she uncovered, the more dangerous her life became. Shadows followed her closer. Threats grew bolder. Once, she returned home to find her apartment ransacked, her personal things scattered. A single note left on her pillow. We warned you. Her heart nearly stopped, but fear turned instantly into fury. Whoever was behind this wanted her broken, afraid, silenced. Instead, it only fueled her determination. The following days blurred into constant movement. Meetings in deserted parks, whispered conversations in cafes where no one paid attention, coded notes passed in books at libraries. The city was a giant chessboard, and every figure around her was either a pawn or a traitor. But in moments of silence, when she found herself alone, Claire felt the weight of it all pressed down. She remembered her childhood, how desperately she had wanted love from her parents, how she had searched their cold faces for warmth. Now she realized. They had given her nothing but secrets and scars. And yet, within that pain, strength was born. Claire's investigation led her deeper into a spiral of danger. Each new clue opened another door. And behind every door lurked shadows that threatened to swallow her whole. One evening she and Isabella went to an archive hidden inside an old church. Candles flickered in the dim hall, casting trembling light over walls heavy with history. Claire ran her hand across dusty shelves, pulling out folders filled with forgotten documents. Among them was a file with her father's name. She opened it, her breath catching. Inside were reports, coded telegrams, photographs, evidence of illegal deals, bribes, even murders connected to her family. Her hands shook. All this time, she whispered. Isabella touched her shoulder gently. The truth is rarely clean. But now it's yours to carry. That night, danger struck again. As Claire left the church, a black car sped toward her. She barely leapt aside, rolling across the cold pavement. The car screeched to a halt, and masked men leapt out. Fight broke out, chaotic, brutal. Claire relied on her instincts, every move fueled by survival. Isabella fought at her side, precise and merciless. When it was over, the attackers lay unconscious, but the message was clear. Her enemies were growing desperate. Back in her apartment, Claire sat by the window, the city lights flickering in the distance. Her reflection stared back at her, pale and tired, but her eyes burned with defiance. "I've already lost too much," she thought. "I won't let them win." The following days were filled with pursuit and betrayal. Edward returned once more, begging her to stop. "Claire, they'll kill you," he pleaded. "This isn't a game. You don't know who you're dealing with." But Claire's answer was steady, unwavering. "Maybe I don't, but I know who I am. And I'm not running anymore." Edward lowered his gaze, his face heavy with guilt. "Then forgive me." Something in his tone made her blood run cold. She realized, too late, that he had betrayed her. The ambush came swiftly. She was cornered in an underground parking lot, surrounded by men with weapons. Her breath quickened, but her fear turned into focus. She scanned every exit, every shadow. The fight was vicious. Blows, gunshots, sparks of violence echoing in the confined space. Claire fought like never before, every muscle straining, every instinct honed. She wasn't just surviving now, she was striking back. When the silence finally fell, Claire stood in the middle of the wreckage, bruised and breathless. Around her, her enemies lay defeated. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number appeared on the cracked screen. "You've only uncovered the beginning. Meet me at the pier at dawn if you want to learn the rest." Claire's hand trembled as she closed the phone. The city was still alive outside, glowing in the night, but now it felt like a predator watching her every move. She knew one thing for certain: the game wasn't over. It was only beginning.